All right, hello traders, and welcome to the Pro Trader Network live training room. The purpose of these live training sessions is to discuss conditions in the currency markets and perform some chart analysis. I will also examine trading psychology challenges faced by traders and attempt to provide some techniques to overcome these challenges. I'll also do my best to answer your questions and emails. Before we start this week's training, I have to legally warn you about trading. Trading Forex has a high level of risk. The possibility exists that you can lose some or all of your initial investment, and therefore you should never trade with money you cannot afford to lose. If you're not aware of all the risks associated with Forex trading, you should seek the advice of an independent financial advisor. I strongly recommend trading a demo account until you achieve consistency and profitability. We're not making any promises, expressed or implied, that you will be successful in your trading endeavors. The information provided in this live room is for educational and training purposes only. All right, the business end out of the way. Here we go. Here are some questions I got this week. All right, the first one is, I sent out an email the other day, and a lot of you have expressed this sentiment, and I use the term, the markets aren't doing what they are supposed to. And people have asked me, what do you mean by that? What do you mean the markets aren't doing what they're supposed to? Well, there are periods, especially now in this geopolitical climate, and I'll get into that, but where we do, depending on your approach to trading, your analysis, if you use Bollinger Bands with standard deviations, if you use Elliott wave theory, whatever you use to analyze the market, a lot of times you can just throw that out the window. And what I mean by the markets aren't doing what they're supposed to do, that's actually the opposite. The markets are doing exactly what they're supposed to do. They're being quite random. And never before, especially in the last year and a half, have I seen the markets react so emotionally to news or commentary by financial institutions or by state representatives that represent financial institutions. For instance, Draghi and Christine Legrand, is it Legrand or the IMF chairman? We have Yellen. We have all these guys that are talking heads that represent the financial interests of particular, Lagarde, thank you, Carlos, Christine Lagarde, that represent the financial interest of their central banking institutions. And those guys always have high impact. But now we have all these independent regional presidents of the Fed making commentary that are moving the markets. And all of these announcements that normally wouldn't have high impact, to say the least, but would usually have very little impact, are moving the markets in fractions of seconds. And I've just never seen a market so emotional. And so what I mean by the markets aren't doing what they're supposed to do is, I believe, based on my observations and the difficulty I've had really identifying some trading opportunities, is that the markets are as highly emotional as I've ever seen them. Anytime anybody breathes anything, the markets will react. And so when you're doing harmonic, you're looking at market harmonics, or you're looking at Fibonacci analysis and stuff, it just simply doesn't perform with the consistency that it would in a normally, what I will call a normally emotionally stable market. And you continue to see, especially in the news, all of these finance ministers and heads of global banking institutions making announcements, talking about quantitative easing, talking about shoring up their trade deficits and so on, in a protectionism and isolationism mode. They're trying to protect their economies, their rates of inflation, their trade deficits. And we talk about a lot about China and how integrated they are throughout the world, especially in the commodities area, and as well as trade. But they have put out news that their production is going to be 7% or less over the course of the last year, and the markets went haywire. 7% annual production is insane. That's actually very high, but when you're used to 9 or 10, which they've done consistently for over the past decade, people start to react. And that's kind of what started this emotional waterfall in the markets. And so I've had difficulty with it. And the reason is I'm trying to adjust to more of a scalping strategy, and what's happening with the times I'm available to trade in that strategy is I'll be sitting down for the first couple of hours of, let's say, the Asian session, and the markets will do nothing. And the minute I walk away, or the minute I have to get some sleep, I come back and some announcement's been made, or the Chinese government has made an announcement on the daily price of the yuan, and the market moves. And so I'm just missing, I've never missed so many trading signals in my life. So I'm struggling a little bit, and we go through periods as traders where we struggle. There's no question about that. But personally, it's just not been this difficult for me since I've been a new trader for the times that I am sitting down to trade. And so that's what I mean when the markets aren't doing what they're supposed to do. Typically, the tendency is at the opening of a session, you'll get a burst or a wave of activity, and then it will settle down, and then into the opening of the next session, let's say London, the first 2 hours, something will happen. And you can literally look at these measured moves throughout these market opens. That hasn't been the case when I'm looking at the market as consistently as it used to be. So our job is to adapt, and that's what I am doing my best to do right now. And it just seems like, I mentioned to you earlier, I'm getting older. I actually have to get a few hours of sleep a night, and the minute I start to kind of fade and have to rest, I come back and the move is happening. What I've been noticing lately, think about this for a minute, traders, is that there's usually been, in most markets, most sessions, so let's start with the Asian session, and then the London session, and then the New York session, there's usually been one impulse move per session. And what I've noticed is it may or may not be triggered by a high impact announcement. And back to what I said earlier, it may be triggered by something that is typically just non-impactful. But at that particular moment, during that particular session, somehow the market reacted. The other thing that's been happening a lot lately with this protectionism philosophy is that a lot of high impact announcements have not been scheduled. So you'll see the market all of a sudden go nuts and for a 5-minute candle, and then settle down because someone said something, and then you'll look at your Bloomberg feed or the news and it'll say, the Japanese interior finance minister decided to buy 30 billion yen. And that's nowhere, that's on no news feed, and is completely unannounced. And so that tells you that even in these clandestine backroom meetings, these guys are formulating strategies that they should actually share with the rest of the global financial markets, but they're not. So everybody's kind of adopting this isolationist policy. So that's what I mean when I say the markets aren't doing what they're supposed to do. They're not really being as, consistent as I would like to see. But I guess at the same time, we can say they're doing exactly what they're supposed to do, and quite often they're completely random. So that's what I mean by that, and that's a lot of you guys have emailed me and saying, I'm having a losing streak. Nothing seems to be working, and that's what I attribute it to. All right, next question. What is the best scalping time frame? I get this a lot, especially lately, because what I've said is when you're trading the higher time frames and the market is moving inconsistently, the best thing to do, especially ranging, the best thing to do is to go to a smaller time frame and perhaps do some scalping. And I think this is really subjective. Excuse me just a minute. And that is, what is your tolerance for the speed of movement of the market? Charts do tend to move the same on every time frame, meaning a setup on a 1 minute chart has the same meaning as it does on a daily chart in terms of candle patterns and impulses and so on. I simply can't react that fast to a 1 minute chart. For me, that's almost impossible. 5 minute chart is stretching my limits. I like to trade mostly a 15-minute chart, and in normal conditions I would scalp a 1 hour chart. So you're going to have to just simply put in the time to decide how you can execute the best, what you're comfortable with in terms of reading price action, and scalping just from a biological standpoint in terms of your brain to be able to process information. You should probably keep it down to 1 or 2 pair at the most, maybe 3 if you're that good, if you have enough practice. But that's what I would do. You're just going to have to figure it out, because the best scalping time frame is different for every trader. Next question. I see this a lot. I've been looking at some threads in Forex Factory. There are people saying, trading a demo account is an absolute waste of time. And I think that, okay, very good. Carlos says, I've been scalping on the 5 minute, but only 3 pairs. Very good. Very cool. Should I use a demo account? I see so many, and this is me talking. I see so many threads, and no, that's not me talking. Hang on. This is you guys talking. Should I use a demo account? I see so many threads, forums that say it is not the same as real money trading. I'm sorry I got sidetracked. I'm reading these threads in Forex Factory where people say, demo account's a waste of time. Trading real money. And I respectfully disagree. This is all about perception, and everybody has been sold that demo trading is a waste of time because there's more emotion attached to real money trading. Well, that is simply a perception. Nothing more. That's you convincing yourself that demo trading is meaningless. I personally think that demo trading is the way to go, because you can goof around and make all the mistakes in a demo account, and once you decide to get serious about trading and really formulate a trading plan and start to execute a trading plan, what good is it to have real money in the market and lose real money when the opportunity for you to do that meaningfully in a demo account exists? How many times in your life have you said, wow, I wish I would have had the opportunity to try that first before making a full commitment? That's why you date normally before you get married. That's why you try on shoes before you buy them. You see if it fits. But yet I see all these people, supposedly successful traders, advocating that, it's just not the same. Well, if that's what you believe, it's not going to be the same. But that is purely perception. Purely perception. So I respectfully disagree. I think absolutely you should use a demo account. And let's just say maybe it's not psychologically the aspect of the equity in your account, but what about just executing your trading platform? What about just being able to push the button at the right time? I think the stupidest thing in the world you could do is do that with a live money account without any real practice. So should I use a demo account? Absolutely. Next question. I get this a lot, especially lately. I don't know why, but I've been getting these emails. Is backtesting really necessary? Wouldn't I be better off just forward testing? And the same thing I see in forums is backtesting is a waste of time. It's not the real market. When you backtest, you're looking at conditions that you may or may not have reacted to in the market, etc., etc. And all of that, to some extent, is true. But the reason backtesting is so important is, let's say your data is off by 10%. You look at 100 trade occurrences, and 10 of those 100 were news-based or anomalies or trades that you couldn't have predicted even using your trading system. Or there's some reason or some variables that you couldn't have taken into account at the time that trading signal occurred. Fine. So let's say it's 15%. The point of backtesting is to develop your reticular activating system as well as collect data so that you can simply recognize what a valid signal is. And again, you could do that forward testing, but backtesting gives you kind of a head start. You've imprinted what that valid signal looks like in your brain, so forward testing gives you the ability to have a better performance or winning percentage because you're familiar with what a trade signal looks like. Again, if you're just going forward and saying, okay, this is my trading plan and this is what I determine is a valid trading signal, and now you're forward testing, it's going to take you a lot longer than if you had back tested. It's kind of like taking a test. When you go to school, what you do is, let's say you're in a math class and you're doing quadratic equations. What do they do in the math class? They start systematically teaching you the elements of a quadratic equation so that once you see it, now you know exactly what the formula is, you know exactly what variables to use, and you know exactly how to solve that equation. But if I just said to you, okay, here are a bunch of quadratic equations, please go figure these out, having not seen any of those elements before, it would take you a lot longer to figure them out. What I continue to come back to, traders, is that there are biological sequences that we have to achieve in the learning process. And so backtesting provides part of that familiarity through our reticular activating system to recognize what a valid signal is. And when people say, yeah, backtesting is false, to me that's just them saying, you know, it's too much work. I don't want to do it. You always have the freedom to adjust or manipulate your trade plan and trading system. It doesn't mean that you have to be locked in to one idea. But if you're going to develop a trading system, you have to learn it the same way you learn everything else. Not because I say so, because it's a biological fact. So think about your profession. I don't know what you guys do for a living. If you're an engineer, and I said, okay, do the structural analytics on this structural steel for this particular high-rise building, wouldn't you have to study first material strength, connections, shear strength, wind load, compression, all of these different elements before you started to begin to do some calculations? It's the same thing. Backtesting simply gives you the ability to learn the elements and the sequence of events and the progression of taking action. I think it's absolutely necessary. Next one. Can you recommend a good broker? Boy, this is another thing that I think has turned the retail currency industry upside down. I'm going to ask you guys a question. Could you type in for me what broker you're using right now? Just type it in. I'll read the list. FXCM, FX Active Trades. Okay, great. IG, okay. Global Prime, IG, FXCM. Scott, are you from the United States? Scott Black? Scott, are you in the U.S.? You are. Where are you? Yeah, I was having, a lot of you were putting FXCM and Forex.com, and I think, how are you guys, how is their execution for you? Are you getting your orders filled when you click the button? Okay, Scott says yes. Mark, okay, all the time, Mark. And Mark, where are you? You're in Australia, right? Oh, Mark Lecky, you're in London. Mark Dancy, where are you? South Africa. Okay, here's the reason I can't FXCM Canada. I can't recommend a broker anymore. And the reason is I have been through Forex.com, was a disaster for me. FXCM, I was trying to place trades all during the fall, and it would say, what's that error message that pops up? Invalid pricing. I would click my button 10 times. I couldn't get an order filled. And guys, this was not during news. This was not during slippage or any of that. Okay, so you were using a company called Global Prime. I couldn't place a trade. I couldn't believe it. So I completely bailed on U.S. brokers. IG Index in the UK, customer services are very good. Always respond to queries and they will call you. That's good, Tony. The problem is that there are some strict banking laws between the UK and the US that disallow United States customers from using a UK broker because you guys don't pay taxes and this is considered spread betting. So there's a whole nother environment there for people that are outside of the United States. So can I recommend a good broker? I really can't. Yeah. Stoy says, I've definitely used brokers that need 2, 3, 4 clicks before a fill or close, and it's terrible. Well, I was having to, I just got to the point where I couldn't even place a trade. It was just ridiculous. So I'm very interested in your guys' comments right now because I see that it's very diverse. But in the US, we are very limited to our options here because of our regulations. So that's what's going on with that. So yeah, I can't recommend a good broker anymore because the ones I'm using, I've just begun using, and the ones that I've used in the recent past have been terrible. And the one I used before that I loved, that I used for years, is out of business. They were acquired by Forex.com. So I can't really recommend a good broker. Last question. I'm having trouble using my MT4 on Windows 10. Can you suggest any fixes or workarounds? Well, again, I'm going to put this to you guys. I have Windows 8.1 and Windows 7 on my computers, and Windows 10 on my laptop. No problem on 10. Okay. I actually had one computer upgrade to Windows 10, and I couldn't get my platforms to work. So, Mark, did you reload your platforms once you upgraded to Windows 10, or were they existing on your machine? I've had this email probably a dozen times. You reloaded it entirely, so a fresh set of charts? Okay, Carlos says, yeah, he had to reload as well. Okay, well, that's good to know. So I didn't do that because I didn't want to have to reload all my templates and indicators. I'll admit it, I was lazy. But okay, that's good to know. So let me ask you another question. Do you like Windows, just a general question, do you like Windows 10? Yes, okay. So that's a mixed bag too. I have it on my laptop and I just think it's okay. So Tony says for him Windows 10 is a lot better than 8. I don't know. Patrick says, does the F12 key work on Windows 10 for backtesting? That's a good question. Stoy says F12 definitely works. God, this is great. This is great information, guys. I really appreciate it. They're running this promo that you can get Windows 10 free for a year. I'm sure you know that. And so the issue is, do I go ahead and upgrade it? And just now that I know that you guys had to reload your MT4s going forward, that's probably what I'll do. I know that what happens is they'll ultimately phase out the support for Windows 7 and Windows 8. I think I read it was 2020, so actually relatively soon. So I wanted to know if while this window of opportunity, if you will, for Windows 10, I don't want to lose that, because I certainly don't want to have to pay for upgrading 4 computers. Here's the issue with some of the web-based MT4s that I've used and experimented with. You can't upload your templates at the moment. That prospect, though, is very exciting to me, that you can go to these brokers and have a web-based interface just like you can anything that's on the cloud. And I think that's a really exciting proposition. But currently, you can't load any custom indicators or templates. They have all the basic ones, so you're limited to that. All right, well, all good info. Okay, so based on your experience so far, I'll go ahead and upgrade then. But now that I know I have to reload completely new files for MT4. So those are all the questions I got, guys. I didn't get many, and as I mentioned at the beginning of our session here today, it's good and it's bad. The good part is that you guys have evolved and you've moved on, and you're sophisticated traders now, and you're getting everything figured out. This is how your trading journey evolves, and that is you get introduced to something, or you develop principles, you integrate some of your own philosophies and your own experiences and your own information, and you develop your own trading style and trading system and trading approach, and that's fantastic. I feel as though I have a whole group of consultants here, and let me say, I'm sorry I'm not paying you for your information, but this is great. But I feel as though I've got kind of a ready-made sample audience here of experts that can give me feedback, and that's really cool. Okay, well, good. So we'll keep doing these intermittently. So I'm going to take a break right now. Let me stop this recording. So we'll take a 10-minute break and refill our coffee, and then we'll be back in a minute.